actually says that we don't need to go up there or something like along those lines. So they were avoiding the room above the garage, which was weird.
And wait, was this before or after his death?
This is, well, he was already dead, but nobody knew he was dead yet.
Right, because I saw that, there had been at least 4 or 5 days between his actual death and when somebody actually finds him.
Yep. He actually, his estimated death was the 4th, April 4th, and they didn't find him until the 9th. So, yeah, they think he was laying there for 4 days.
Yeah, I guess I was reading up on, he had scheduled to have somebody come in and install some kind of light fixture on the outside of his house. And
that was Courtney.
Was it?
Courtney she wanted a security system put in.
Gotcha.
Because she was paranoid about something.
Yeah, okay, but I was reading into it, and supposedly this guy who just sees Kurt slumped over and he thinks that he's sleeping until he notices that there's blood running out of his ears. So, and then it skips over.
He wasn't slept over, though. Well, he was laying on the floor.
The thing that I was reading.
Yeah.
Anyway, the guy just lets himself into the house and then supposedly finds this note stuffed inside a planter. Like, how did you know that was there? Why the F are you inside of Kurt's house? How did you get in there? Why didn't you call 911? There's too many questions there.
Yeah, exactly. And, and the thing is with Tom Grant was really questioning a lot of these things, and he noticed certain things like Kurt Cobain's credit card. Kurt Cobain's credit card was apparently used on the 6th and the 7th. And Kurt was dead on the 4th. So somebody used his credit card on the 6th and the 7th, and there wasn't any kind of cameras or anything like that. They traced it back to where it was some convenience store that gets thousands of customers a fucking day. So there was no way to tell.
The question is why would Courtney Love hire somebody to investigate his death? It doesn't make sense to me.
He was missing.
Oh, gotcha.
He was missing.
But why the hell wouldn't she check her own frickin' house? What the hell?
He wasn't there until apparently a couple days before he died. That's the thing. April 1st is when he went missing from the treatment center. April 4th is when he when he supposedly died. And April 8th is when they found him.
So I don't know how she could just go that long without talking to her husband. I can't go more than like 10 minutes without messaging.
That's why she hired a private investigator 2 days later. And the whole thing is like a lot of the stuff that Courtney was saying, she almost sounded like she was just trying to cover her own fucking ass. But, okay, some of the reasons that people question, that's the whole official story is on April 8th, they found his body, the coroners came in, local police came in, and they wrapped that up within like 6 hours. They deemed it a suicide, they cleaned up the crime scene, got everything out of there, and nice neat little bow, throw it out. They really needed a clear-cut case here, and I think that's why...
You feel like it was rushed?
Oh, yeah. It was definitely rushed. They saw another heroin addict kill themselves. That's what they thought in their brain, which, to a point, you can't blame them, because there's a lot of people that go down that road that end up killing themselves, and everything was pointing, like, at face value, everything was pointing to him killing himself. That was the official story. Now, there's a lot of discrepancies and holes in this story when you actually look in depth inside of it. First of all, a lot of the things that come to mind when you think about the inconsistency is the first thing people say is the heroin thing. He had 3 times the lethal dose. The whole thing is with the lethal dose thing is it all depends on your tolerance. And he had been doing heroin since he was like 12. Okay. So I don't know what his tolerance was, but the amount of heroin that was in his body, I doubt that guy could have picked up a gun. That's the big part right there. Is I don't think Kurt Cobain, with that much heroin in his system, no matter how much of a junkie he is, your body still shuts down at a certain point. Like, your tolerance can be as high as you want, but your physical body's going to shut down. I don't think he was, like, even conscious enough to pick up a gun, for one. Two, Kurt was 5'9", or 5'7". No, he was 5'7".
Yeah, he was 5'7".
Yeah, he was 5'7". He was shorter. And he shot himself with a shotgun, for one. Why, if you're going to shoot yourself, why didn't you just shoot yourself with a fucking handgun if you're that fucking short? Two, his shoes were still on, which most people that shoot themselves with a shotgun that are at that stature, that height, they're going to shoot it with their toe. They're going to press the trigger with their toe. That's one of the big things right there, too. Like I said, Dylan and Courtney Love completely avoided looking up into the greenhouse, which is that's what they called the room above the garage. I do believe it was the green room or the greenhouse, one of the two. Yeah, there's a lot of discrepancies in this. Courtney was acting really weird throughout the whole thing. And Kim's going to go over the suicide note here in a minute. Yeah, the note is a little bit fishy too in my eyes.
It completely changed demeanor probably about halfway through. And I'll actually go through and read the whole thing for you out loud. It just sounds a little different when somebody else reads it, but I'll do the best that I can.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read that now or do you want me to wait?
You can read it now.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So he has it written to Boda. It's Boddah.
Which was an imaginary friend.
I guess that's his imaginary friend. I didn't know about that. But I suppose if you're on heroin, I mean, you'll take what you get for friends, right?
It was for when he was a kid.
Okay, so I guess Boda is from when he was a kid. So let's just start off the story with to Boda. It'd be like to Bing Bong or something. Alright, I shouldn't poke fun at this because, this is what the suicide note actually is. It says to Boda, speaking from the tongue of an experienced simpleton who obviously would rather be on an emasculated, infantile complainee, this note should be pretty easy to understand. All the warning signs from the Punk Rock 101 courses over the years, since my induction to the, shall we say, ethics involved with independence and embracement of your community, has proven to be very true. I haven't felt the excitement of listening to as well as creating music, along with reading and writing for too many years now. I feel guilty beyond words about those things. For example, when we're backstage and the lights go out and the manic roar of the crowd begins, it doesn't affect me the way which it did for Freddie Mercury, who seemed to love and relish in the love and adoration from the crowd, which is something to totally admire and envy. The fact is, I can't fool you, any one of you. It simply isn't fair to you or me. The worst crime I can think of would be to rip people off by faking it and pretending as if I'm having 100% fun. Sometimes I feel as if I should have a punch-in time clock before I walk out on stage. I've tried everything within my power to appreciate it. And I do. God, believe me, I do. But it's not enough. I appreciate the fact that I and we have affected and entertained a lot of people. It must be one of those narcissists who only appreciate things when they're gone. I am too sensitive. I need to be slightly numb in order to regain enthusiasms in which I had as a child. On our last 3 tours, I've had a much better appreciation for all the people that I've known personally, as fans of music, but still, I can't get over the frustration, the guilt, the empathy I have for everyone. There is good in all of us, and I think I simply love people too much. So much that it makes me feel too fucking sad. The sad, little, sensitive, unappreciative Pisces Jesus man. Why don't you just enjoy it? I don't know. I have a goddess of a wife who sweats ambition and empathy, and a daughter who reminds me too much of what I used to be, full of love and joy, kissing every person she meets because everyone is good and will do her no harm. And that terrifies me to the point where I can barely function. I can't stand the thought of Francis becoming a miserable, self-destructive death rocker that I've become. I have it good. Very good. I am grateful. But since the age of 7, I have become hateful towards all humans in general. Only because it seems so easy for people to get along that have empathy. Only because I love and feel sorry for people too much, I guess. Thank you all from the pit of my burning, nauseous stomach for your letters and concern during the past years. I'm too much of an erratic, moody baby. I don't have the passion anymore. And so remember, it's better to burn out than fade away. Peace, love, empathy. Kurt Cobain. Francis and Courtney, I'll be at your altar. Please keep going, Courtney, for Francis. For her life, which will be so much happier without me. I love you. I love you. Kurt Cobain. So I feel like the letter really took a turn when he started going into the part about Courtney. And so he basically switches subjects. He was going on about his career and how he doesn't like doing it anymore. And hey, let's change the subject to, let's talk about my wife and how beautiful she is and everything. And the demeanor changed. As I got to that point, I feel like the demeanor of the letter actually had changed.
Yeah, I mean, with the letter, it's crazy. I mean, I've read that thing so many times. Back when I was a kid, I had the Kurt Cobain journals, and it was basically, they took a bunch of his notebooks. It was Courtney Love trying to make money. And it was somebody that took a bunch of his notebooks, Courtney Love, got it all put into a hardcover book called the Kurt Cobain Journals. In it, the last page was the suicide note. Every time I see that note, it's crazy. The last 4 lines or so, I think it's the last 4 lines. It's a completely different handwriting. They've had handwriter analysis look at that shit, and it's completely wrong.
Well, he goes from, I've become hateful towards all humans in general, right after saying, I have a goddess of a wife who sweats ambition and empathy and a daughter who reminds me of what I used to be. And essentially going from above saying that there's good in all of us and I simply love people too much. Mm-hmm. So which is it? Do you love people too much, or are you just a completely empty
He was
shell?
bipolar.
Oh yeah, I suppose you could
He
say
was
there.
very, very bipolar. He had a lot of like things going on in his head. He was I didn't notice it until I was older, but he was really whiny and a poor me kind of guy. I always got the shitty end of the stick, blah, blah, blah. It's like a lot of people have gotten shitty deals, shitty hands in life, and they've handled it a lot fucking different than he did. He didn't have a terrible childhood. The only bad things that really happened was that his
parents
split up. Yeah, but there was a little bit, now that I'm remembering it. His mom, the stepdads that she used to be with, were abusive towards her. So he did see a lot of physical abuse.
Well, right, and
his
being
mom.
that young, you probably don't have the coping skills that you'd need. So I could understand how he would internalize that and really take it out on himself.
Right. Crazy things going on in his head. One example of his self-esteem, he always had a very low self-esteem. That's why Courtney Love was able to rope him in. Basically, Courtney Love was the type that any man that she was with, she was married to one guy for less than a year before Kurt, and any other man that she was with, basically all of a sudden she liked all the things that person was into, and she was into that stuff too. And she would find out what that person was into and then give them presents and shit like that.
So she was good at faking it.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
gotcha.
Yeah. That's exactly what she was good at.
I'm going to be Mrs. Right.
Yeah.
Until you die, and then I'm just going to go on to the next person.
Right. Like Heart Shaped Box. If you listen to the song Heart Shaped Box, that is about Courtney Love. Because that was on Inierto, which Inierto came out in 1994 before his death. And he had the Unplugged album, the Unplugged show on MTV, which was phenomenal. It had one of my favorite songs that he's ever sang, and it wasn't even a song by him. It was a song by Harvey Ledbetter called Where Did You Sleep Last Night? And I love that song. And Like a Fire, which I think was Melvin's. I could be wrong, though. He had a lot of good ones there. His self-esteem was terrible. I'm sorry I'm jumping around like crazy.